Group's virtual lunch and learn regarding Microsoft 365 and the price increases. I'm Jeremy Adams. I'm the business development executive here, and I want to thank you everyone for attending. Quick introduction to our um, Fulcrum Group team members that are present. We have Steve Meek, our president, and David Johnson, our vice president. We also have Ryan Young and Mike Schmidt, our fractional chief information officers, and Chase Haley, our inside sales representative. Also, David Atchley, service manager. I
We
also like
got
to.
we got Joe in there too. Don't forget
We got
Joe.
Joe.
Yeah,
Excellent. Joe's
Joe is
our
our
service desk manager.
service
Yeah,
desk manager. He's been with us just has it been 30 days yet, Joe?
What was that? I'm sorry, I missed.
he's asking if you had been with us for 30 days already.
Yeah, just over.
All
Just
right.
over. Excellent.
All right. Awesome.
I'd also like to introduce our event sponsor, Jody Battle Lament with Ingram Microsoft. So quick housekeeping, we're going to go ahead and mute everyone. And if you have a question, just put it in chat and we'll address at the end of each presentation or save it for the Q&A at the end. We have some call-in users you might want to mute real quick, David. And then we'll have a second presentation after a break. After the first session, we'll have a short break, and then our second presentation will start around 12:10. And we'll have an audience Q&A around the 12:45-ish time frame, depending on when it ends. And we'll have a wrap-up giveaway of a $100 gift card around the 12:50 to 12:55 time frame. You must be present to win the $100 Amazon gift card. Our presenter today is none other than David Johnson. David Johnson's a co-founder and vice president of the Fulcrum Group. And as vice president, David is responsible for sales and marketing strategy of the Fulcrum Group. He's a longtime cybersecurity expert and has worked with clients in several industries, including local government, healthcare, and finance. So David, if you will, take it away. He's so good at muting, he's got himself muted. That's a common theme for all of the last 2 years.
Yeah, we could play a conference call bingo here. But welcome everyone. I'm David Johnson with the Fulcrum Group. Thanks for everybody for attending today. I love seeing so many people here. This is a great turnout. And today we're going to talk about what you need to know about Microsoft's upcoming price increase for Microsoft 365. But before we jump in, I wanted to ask a couple of questions. I know Jeremy's already been asking questions about food and other stuff. I'm going to ask some, hopefully, some good relevant questions that'll help us frame our conversation today. So the first question is going to be, how many of you are Office 365 or Microsoft 365 users today? If you could put your answers into chat there. Microsoft, just put Microsoft 365, or if you're using Google or something else, put that in there. Looks like almost everybody is on. That's awesome. All right, I want to throw my second question out there. And how many of you are regular users of Microsoft Teams? So just say Teams yes or Teams no. All right, so it looks like we got a lot of Teams users as well. And some people hopefully will learn a little bit today, but we'll talk about that today and cover that a little bit better. Okay. All right, and then final question. What's the one thing you hope to get out of today's lunch and learn? If there's a specific question you want answered or any of those kind of things, throw that into chat as well. And then Jeremy will make sure to capture those and we'll make sure we cover it. So. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. So, as Jeremy mentioned earlier, as we move along in the presentation, if you have questions come to mind, please put those into chat, and then we'll answer them at the end of the presentation. I've got time allotted just strictly for that. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so before we get into the serious stuff of price increases, I wanted to talk a little bit about Microsoft 365 history. So, one of the interesting things I find about 365 is that, Microsoft really didn't get into the cloud business until 2006, when they started offering their first hosted email services called Exchange Hosted Services. And in 2008, they introduced what we lovingly called BPOS, or Business Productivity Online Suite. And that's really the true precursor to Office 365 and Microsoft 365. Around 2010, Microsoft combined the BPOS along with some other cloud services and formed the first true version of Office 365. But you might not have known that Microsoft actually considered other names for for Office 365. I'm going to list these out to you and tell me which one you think would have been a better choice than Office 365. So the first one that they considered was Office 24/7. I think they initially just thought about it and then eventually decided that that was a bad idea because they weren't sure if they were going to be able to run it 24/7 at the time. So, and then the next choice they considered was Office Blue, since a lot of their branding has the blue in their logos and other things. But they thought they might offend their partner, IBM, who is also known as Big Blue. And then my favorite of the three was Office Partly Cloudy. And that was because you had your Office desktop software that wasn't cloud, and then you had your cloud services like email. So I thought that was a little bit humorous. So, all right. Anybody got a favorite on those names? Like I said, I like the Office Partly Cloudy, but all right, we'll keep going. Let's see what we got next here. So, but anyway, eventually they renamed Office 365 into Microsoft 365. That started in 2018, and confusingly enough, there are still a few subscriptions that Microsoft offers they're still called Office 365. So even though that most of it's been rebranded Microsoft 365, there's still a few out there. And to give Microsoft credit, they have really been steadily improving the reliability and functionality of Microsoft 365 for the past 10 or so years. According to Microsoft, they've released more than 24 new applications and 1,400 new features and capabilities. In the next presentation, after we get our lunch in, we'll cover those in more detail. So I'm not going to spend too much time on these right now. We're just going to give you a little bit of an idea. But one of the big ones is Microsoft Teams. And Microsoft Teams is probably worth $8 to $10 per month, especially when you compare it to Zoom and some of the other collaboration and communication tools that are on the market. Microsoft is also heavily invested in the security and compliance arena. As the largest provider of cloud applications, Microsoft is really a huge target. So they have put a massive effort into improving cybersecurity within the Microsoft 365 suite. And then the area that's a little bit tough to pin down, but that's the AI and automation. So they've really put a lot of features into things that make it easier to create emails and Word documents and PowerPoint presentations with all the different types of suggestions. And we have live captions and Teams and other things. So really, we'll talk some more about that. But those capabilities, just make you a better user of the Office suite. And then there's all kinds of other features. We'll talk some more about those, but Power BI, Stream, some of those are really great. So, and I got another question for you. So, thinking about the Microsoft Suite 365 suite, outside of the typical Office applications like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and Outlook, is there a favorite app that you like to use? It could be Teams, or it could be one of the other applications. So put that in the chat if you got one that you really like. All right, let's get on to the next one here. So now we're going to get on to the reason that we're really here, and that's the price increase for Microsoft 365. And honestly, I'm surprised that Microsoft hasn't increased prices prior to now. Google is the only other competitor out there with their Google Workspace that offers anywhere near a competitive suite of software and services. And we just talked about all of the new features. As business owners and managers, we've all been hit hard by price increases across the board from just about every one of our vendors, whether that's office supplies or cleaning services or, rent at your offices. I mean, everything seems like it's going up, right? And of course, inflation's, higher now than it's been in a long time. Obviously, labor costs have been exploding with the Great Resignation, higher salaries, more recruiting expenses. So, and it's been 10 years since Microsoft has had a price increase. So, I think we all agree that no one likes a price increase, but we're not surprised that that it's here. So, and without further ado, let's look at the numbers and see what it looks like. So. All right, so I know this is a little bit of a busy slide, but I'm going to try to go through this here. So, really the big thing is that Microsoft has increased their monthly subscription cost on several of their most popular subscriptions. And there's some other really big changes, and I'm going to dive into that a little bit deeper on the next slide, but annual subscriptions going forward are going to be the standard agreement term. So if you want to go to month, those prices are going to be higher. So and so there's a lot to digest here, and a lot of these things are going to go into effect on March 1st. So that's coming up pretty quickly. Depending on your subscription types and who they're with, there might be a little bit of time before they officially go into effect. So keep that in mind. As you can see on the per user, you'll see things that increases from anywhere from $1 to to a few dollars per month price differences. So be prepared for that in your monthly bills. And then a note that since we have some nonprofit customers on today, so far we have not received any notice from Microsoft that there's going to be any increases in the nonprofit pricing. It still could happen, but we haven't seen anything as of yet. So we'll keep monitoring that, and as we get there, we'll kind of go through that. So, all right. So now we're going to talk about some of the gotchas. So there's a lot here. There's a lot to do. So I think the main thing I've taken away from everything that we've been looking at is that the most everything that Microsoft is doing here has been done to protect themselves. Customers and resellers are definitely getting the short end of the stick when it comes to these new subscription terms. In the past, customers might have been on an annual contract, but they had a lot of flexibility to cancel and to change resellers and other things. And so now the big thing is going to be you're going to be under contract with your reseller for 12 months at a time. And if you want to try to skip out on your bill, one of the big things that I've seen is that your reseller is going to be able to suspend your services for non-payment, and you're not just going to be able to easily switch. So So that's something that's going to be really a key thing to look at. The other thing is that there's a 72-hour cancellation policy that's going to be going into effect. So once subscriptions are either ordered or auto renewed, your reseller only has 72 hours to cancel, and that's not 72 hours from a business perspective. That's just 72 hours period. So if you're making changes on a Friday and you want to cancel on Monday, you need to make sure you get it done as early as you can on Monday, because that's 48 hours is already going to have gone through by then. So some other things that come up, there are options now for a 3-year commit as well. So it's a great way to get your pricing locked in, but you're also committed for minimum levels and those kind of things for 3 years. So it's a little bit tricky. The ability to increase the number of subscriptions, but you can't decrease. So that's a big one. And then being able to move up from like a lower subscription level to a higher subscription level. But once you do that, you can't go back down. And then when you add licenses, they're going to be co-termed with your original commit. So if you ordered, you have a new contract that started on April 1st and you have 50 subscriptions, and then come July, you add another 10 subscriptions. Those 10 subscriptions that are added are going to be co-termed so that they end on that March 31st date at the same time as all your other subscriptions. So there's a lot of stuff here. I'm going to send out the copies of the presentation so you'll have this information. And then we'll, if you're already a Fulcrum client, we'll be diving into this in with you, one-on-one. So let's see. And then the last thing I wanted to really talk about is just kind of, what you should do, right? So this is a big one, right? So the things that you need to do, and I would say sooner than later. The first and foremost is you want to make sure that you have a complete list of your current Microsoft 365 subscriptions, and if there's any contract terms or any of those kind of things, you want to know what those are so that you can be prepared. So that's a big one. Also, at that time, it's a good idea to look and see if you have any unused subscriptions, because maybe you have 50 subscriptions, but you're only using 35. You might be able to reduce your expense, and it's the time is to do that is now, rather than waiting until you have a new contract in place where you can't go down. So get that trued up to the actual true number of users that you need, and that'll be easier. So. And then you have to make the tough choice. Do you want to stay with your current reseller, or do you want to move to a new reseller? So that's a tough choice, right? So in my mind, if your existing reseller didn't educate you about these changes, are they going to be ready for these changes? Are they going to get you locked into contracts that you didn't understand? Or they didn't educate you or communicate with you what those are going to be. So, and then at that point, if you are going to make that change, you'll need to order your new subscriptions and make sure they show up in your Office 365 tenant prior to canceling your old subscriptions, so that you don't have any loss of service. So you don't want to have any service interruptions. So, and then you'll also want to try to make sure to do it in such a way that you minimize the amount of double billing. It might be impossible to not have a little bit of double billing, but you don't want to have, more than is necessary. So, and then the final thing is just make sure you document, what your subscriptions are and what your contract expirations are, because you're going to want to address those at the time of the contract. So that might be, a contract time. It could be a time to upgrade to a more advanced version of a subscription or other things. So, but that is basically my content today. So I know we covered a ton of information in a pretty short time, and I'm going to be sending out a copy of these slides. We're also recording the whole webinar, so we'll have that on our posted to our YouTube channel. But let's jump into some questions. So, Chase, you got a comment? Jump in.
Yeah, more of a comment. So one thing that I don't think was mentioned is if you currently have an existing contract that expires late this year, you will actually be locked in on your current pricing until the end of that contract. So you will not be affected by the price increase next month until that point. And at that point, you'll have to switch those over to the NCE platform in the licensing, the new rebranding that they're doing.
Thank you for that one, Chase. That's a good one. Yeah, that's you know, and when you're getting that contract term, you want to make sure you know what that looks like. So, all right, what other questions do we have today? I see people using a lot of OneDrive. That's good. List, I like that one up there. Mike or Ryan, are you guys hearing from customers any questions about the price increase or anything else?
No, I haven't heard much at this time, Dave.
Okay. Well, they're probably like the rest of us. They not a whole lot has been communicated up to this point, so a lot of things that are still unknown. But we're trying to make sure we get ourselves there. So,
just other than the fact that none of us want it to happen, right? But not a whole lot we can do about that.
Right. Well, and as Chase alluded to on when he was commenting, is that Microsoft is changing their back end platform for ordering subscriptions, as they call it, the new commerce experience. We didn't really mind the old one, but now we got a new one, so we got to deal with as resellers. So there's one of those things that you have to kind of deal with, that we're dealing with on the back end. So, all right. Well, any other questions? I feel like I should put somebody on the spot here and ask.
I'm not seeing any in chat. I was curious when you said that the Teams feature alone was worth quite a bit, like as a per user. Could you expand on that a little bit more? I mean, for me, it seems like there's more adaptation. There's more people utilizing Teams, just like they were utilizing Zoom, and the pandemic had started all that. But what would be some of the reasons why Teams is such a benefit?
So that is a really good question, because Teams is a a feature that it's not exactly 100% comparable to Zoom, but it's relatively close. You can do most of the same things, and obviously Teams can do a lot more than Zoom can do. It's more tightly integrated. But I know that personally, I have a Zoom subscription, because I use that for meeting with prospective clients who don't have Teams and don't want to download it, and so they already have Zoom. But that subscription costs me $15 a month, so that's in addition to what I'm paying for Microsoft 365. So if I didn't have to have that, I could save $15. So I put the $8 to $10 a month, but I feel like it's could be even worth more if you can reduce those numbers of subscriptions. Chase, go ahead.
Helps if I unmute. Just an additional comment unrelated to Teams, but on the what you should do. One of the recommendations is if you switch over before the March price increase, you can lock in your prices for the current pricing now, so you can actually save a little bit of money in the long term before switching. Additionally, June 30th is the cutoff date for the legacy licensing. So essentially everything you're already subscribed to, you will not be able to renew those after June 30th.
Thank you for that, Chase. Good information.
Definitely good information. So we do have some questions popping in. Dave, I'll ask you. Amy Stevens is saying that my Microsoft rep said in Texas there are only 2 resellers available to purchase Microsoft through on a DIR contract. Is that true?
That is true. So Microsoft 365 can be purchased from any reseller, but if you don't want to have to go out to competitive bid, then that's where the purchasing off a DIR contract would be very helpful. So,
Got it. Amy, if you have any more, feel free to just jump in a chat with it. Derek Johnson's asking, we purchased through CDW, and there are other managed IT companies who resell 365 here in Texas. I guess he was responding to Amy's.
yeah, that's just basically anybody can, there's lots and there's probably thousands of Microsoft partners in Texas who are authorized to resell Microsoft 365, but only the 2 that are authorized on the state of Texas DIR contract. So,
Got it. Todd Stetfield is asking, any thoughts on the acquisition of Slack by Microsoft? How soon can we expect a better integration without third party?
Todd, I'm gonna have to plead ignorance on Slack. I've never been a high level user in Slack, so I don't think I would be able to do that. But are you wanting to have it integrated into Teams, or what's the thoughts there?
Yeah, we've got some developers in our staff that are just avid Slack fans, and that's how most of their communication happens.
Right.
And presently, we integrate them to Teams through some third-party apps. But
right.
I'm just wondering when that all is going to collapse into one thing for us, so that we don't have to have 2 separate support channels going on.
Yeah, I hear that in the development world quite a bit, that they are, very heavy Slack users compared to the, traditional, office, people who are just in the office doing, general office administration and sales and other things. So, but I have not heard anything, but we'll do a little research and try to get you some better answers on that. So, all right. Any other questions out there?
Yes, Sergeant Greta, go ahead. You got it?
Yeah, Sergeant Greta asked if we can discuss the difference between Microsoft D365 E3 and the GCC licensing. Is there a cost difference or product difference? And yeah, we can have a conversation on that one. So I'll put together some information and get that over to you. So and get that to Ryan so he can have that conversation with you. Great question though.
Stop giving me more work to do, Sergeant.
That's usually me giving Ryan work to do, so I'm glad that other people doing it as well. So I don't feel so bad now.
Yeah.
On that same topic, Microsoft, I guess last year had shared a tool that was able to analyze based on utilization and needs on best offering for licenses to ensure that again, you're utilizing the application as much as possible. And so keep that in mind if you wanted to have that next conversation with David. We can plug some information in a tool by asking some questions to find out, what license might be best or which might be best to utilize.
Yeah, that's a great tool, Jeremy. It's just a very easy way to kind of look and see if the subscription levels that you're on right now match what your needs are. So, because that's, people get on a certain subscription level and they, tend to stay on it until somebody helps them understand why they might need to be on something else. So.
And it makes sense if a lot of this is going to be locked into, a year subscription service, to make sure that you have that right up on the front end, since it seems like you can upgrade but not downgrade.
Yeah. Yeah. You can really get yourself in a world of hurt if you get locked in on a contract that doesn't make sense for you. So. All right. Well, Jeremy, we got through that part of the agenda pretty quickly. Do we want to give everybody a few minutes of a break to get something to eat and something to drink, and then we can maybe start back up at 11:50?
Sounds good.
All right. Well, we'll give everybody some breaks, and maybe we can. I'm gonna go watch a couple of those Super Bowl commercials so I can get my best one picked out again. So, all right,
All
we'll
right,
see
everyone.
everybody back in 10 minutes.
Hey, Granny. Yeah, Bert, how you doing? Good. Sitting on this meeting. They on a break though.
Thought that might happen. a little bit past the halfway mark. So we'll get going here in about 4 minutes or so. Curious what everyone's go-to was in the office this today. We got Razoo's, so we went the Cajun food route.
Oh man, I should have come to the office today. I'm enjoying watching Ryan eat over here.
At the beach, apparently. Oh, we got Modern Market and we got Torchy's.
Oh yeah, Torchy's. Taco Cabana is always a good choice. Chipotle, all right. Have to be careful when I go to Chipotle. That's a lot of food, so. Modern Market. I don't know what that is. That sounds good though. Ray's Barbecue. Right.
It's a top choice right there.
Steve Meek is always looking for barbecue places to try, so
Yeah.
that might be the new one he tries out. I'd suggest the pork ribs. Always good. Sure, they just fall right off the bone, I bet. Barbecue and Mexican, that's it. Those are like the two major food groups.
Yeah, I do not believe we'll post a question on either or when it comes to those two.
Yeah.
It's going to be both.
That would be, yeah.
It's going to be both.
It would be the Deion Sanders. What's it going to be, boss? 30, 15 million, 20 million? Both, boss, both. That'll be the same thing for barbecue and Mexican. Bacon corn pizza. Right. I don't know what that is, but it sounds interesting.
Well, it's got the word bacon in it. I mean,
right. You had me at bacon.
give it a couple more minutes and then we'll get going on session 2.
All right. Then I am going to, let's see here. This. Stop presenting for a second and go to my other presentation. All right, do we want to get everybody to type 1 into chat if you're ready to get back going? Just a simple number 1.
And again, I want to thank everyone for attending today. We really enjoy putting these together and we really enjoy the questions because it helps us get an insight on what could be some business concerns when it comes to making changes when it comes to stuff like Microsoft 365 or their technology concerns, cybersecurity concerns.
All right, Jeremy, do we have a propensity of everything? Everybody ready to go? Looks like most everybody is ready to go. All right, well, we're going to jump into it. Okay. Well, here we go. All right. Well, I hope everyone has a good and tasty lunch ready to eat. As with our previous presentation, we ask that you put your questions into the chat and we'll address them at the end of the presentation. And now let's jump into what's new with Microsoft 365. And actually, before we jump into what's new with Microsoft 365, I thought we would take a few minutes here just to kind of review the types of subscriptions available. So first up, we're going to talk about Microsoft 365 for Business. And this is what a lot of organizations use, especially those that are under 300 users, because with Microsoft 365 for Business, it's a maximum of 300 subscriptions. So if you think at some point you're going to exceed that, you may have to go all the way up to the enterprise level, which we'll talk about next. So, and the good news is that you can mix and match different subscription types from the types below. So, Microsoft 365 Business Basic, that's just basically your hosted email and your cloud services like Teams, OneDrive, SharePoint. And plus you get web versions of the Office applications. So you can go to portal.office.com, log in, and you can run Outlook web. You can run the web version of Word or Excel, and allows you to have that functionality without actually having to download and install the software. And it's less expensive. So for your users, maybe who are contractors or other users like that, or maybe people who are in the field who don't need the full experience, you can put them on Business Basic. Next up is the Microsoft 365 Business Standard. So this is the kind of the same as the Business Basic, but it includes the full desktop Office applications. So full desktop versions of Word, Excel, Outlook, PowerPoint, and a few other apps as well. It's available for both Windows and Mac computers. Also available for your mobile devices. So you got full Office applications that you can download on both iOS and Android devices as well. So, and that's a pretty common service out there that we see is the Microsoft 365 Business Standard. Although we are now seeing a lot of our customers are migrating up to Microsoft 365 Business Premium, and Microsoft Business Premium is basically the same features as Business Standard, but it has the additional cyber security, threat protection, and also some device management capabilities. So something that we recommend across the board to our customers is to look at upgrading to that level. If you're on Business Standard, try to get to Business Premium. You'll pay a few more dollars for it, but well worth it. So, and then if you have any users who just need the desktop apps only and don't need any of the hosted email or other cloud applications, you can get the Microsoft 365 apps subscription. So it's the method that Microsoft recommends for people who maybe have their hosted email on Google or some other service, and they don't want to migrate to the full Office 365 experience. They can just get the Microsoft 365 apps. So, all right, we'll move on. So now we're going to talk about Microsoft 365 for Enterprise. So the Enterprise subscriptions are unlimited. So you can have as many subscriptions. If you have 20,000, you can do that. So there's no limit on that. And then they have, along with the same as the business, Microsoft 365 Business, you could mix and match subscription types. So the first up is Office 365 E1. This is these Office 365 subscription types are what we call legacy. They've been around for a long time. Microsoft has not rename them to Microsoft 365, and at some point, I believe they're going to stop offering them, but they haven't given us a roadmap of when that's going to be. But this first one, the E1 subscription, is just strictly hosted email and cloud services only. And the big difference with it is that it does not include web versions of the applications. So you would need to have your own email client for that. But it does include web versions of Teams and some of the other cloud services. Next up is your Office 365 E3. For many, many years, this was the standard bearer for Microsoft from an enterprise perspective. It's the full suite of services. So you got hosted email and cloud services, desktop applications, and a lot of compliance features, which is used heavily in enterprise and the local government space. And typically any customers who needed that compliance, even if they were small businesses, would upgrade to the E3 subscriptions. And then the Office 365 E5 has all the same features as E3, but adds in the Microsoft Teams phone system, some analytics, and some other capabilities as well. So don't see a lot of that out there today, but it is a subscription level that's available. Now, these next three are the ones that we use most often today. So first up is your Microsoft 365 F3. And that's for your frontline workers. You know, think about, people who maybe they're using tablets, or maybe they work in the field and they use some email, but they're not big computer users. They get hosted email. Now, one of the big caveats to the F3, it's only 2 gig of email storage. So that's a pretty small amount of storage. Most of the other subscriptions plans include either 50 gig or 100 gig of storage for email. And so that's a little bit tricky. But it does include all of the cloud services like Teams and OneDrive and SharePoint. And it also includes the web versions of the Office applications. So it's pretty powerful for the price. But sometimes you have to upgrade it to another level or add a hosted email plan to get you to where you need if they need more than 2 gig of email. And then the next one up is the Microsoft 365 E3. This is today's Microsoft's standard bearer for the Microsoft 365 enterprise solution. So we have a lot of clients using this. It includes all your full hosted email and cloud services, all the desktop apps. Includes all the compliance stuff like you get in the Office 365 E3, but it includes a lot of core security features that most local government and other clients need. So with Microsoft 365 E5, you get everything that's in E3, plus you're going to get the Microsoft Teams phone system, the advanced analytics, and also some things around identity and access management. And they list a whole bunch of other stuff in there, but that subscription is a tidy $57 per month. So it's not that's per user, and that's so it's not that common, but if you're going to need all those things, it makes for a pretty good value. All right, so now let's jump over here and talk about Microsoft Teams. Microsoft Teams is the biggest addition to the Microsoft 365 suite of cloud services. It was actually introduced by Microsoft prior to the COVID-19 pandemic. But when the pandemic started, the adoption and usage increased exponentially. They went from a few million users to hundreds of millions of users daily in about 30 days. It was quite an amazing increase. And that's, as the remote working scenarios, started at that time. And for a lot of organizations, most everybody, I think, is still in some level of hybrid remote work versus in the office, and doesn't look like that's going to change anytime soon. So having teams available to help with the collaboration and communication is a huge benefit to customers. So, and they've introduced a lot of new features over the last couple of years. They put together what they call the Together mode, which is a nice feature if you want to be able to see all your people together in one room virtually. You can do that. They've really done a great job of integrating Teams into the other Microsoft applications. So, we use that level of integration a lot when we're sharing files through OneDrive or those kind of things. It's nice to be able to share a file. They can click on the link, open the document, and edit it from that link, rather than making revisions and emailing them back and forth and all of those things. Just having that tight integration is probably one of those features that has such a huge impact, but people don't really recognize it. So, if you're not doing that today and you need a little bit of training on that, let us know and we'll try to help you with that. So, another feature that is coming in March is the free audio conferencing. Right. So when you're hosting a Microsoft Teams meeting like we're hosting today, in the past, if you didn't have an audio conferencing license that costs $4 a month, you weren't able to create a Teams meeting that had a dial-in number. So now they're going to make that a standard on all subscriptions across the board, and that's going to make it a lot easier to host that. And they're going to go away. They're going to do away with those $4 a month subscriptions for the audio conferencing. So very nice feature from Microsoft. So if you're using that today or are paying for that, that will pay for pretty much any increases. So another big feature that we're starting to see interest in is the Microsoft Teams phone system. And I'm not going to dig too much into that today, but basically the concept is you take the functionality that you have already in Teams and you overlay a cloud-based phone system on top of it. And so you can use your Microsoft Teams application as your soft phone, or you can actually get a desk phone that's certified with Microsoft Teams and use it as a kind of a more of a traditional phone system. One of the caveats about the Microsoft Teams phone system is that it's not quite as feature rich as a lot of the other systems out there. So if you're needing a lot of high-end capabilities, things like call recording, or you have a call center or customer service, call center kinds of things. If you're doing any kind of advanced routing of calls, it's just not quite up to the task to do that just yet. But to Microsoft's credit, they always are continuously adding features there. So if anybody has questions on that, let us know. We're in the process of doing our first Microsoft Teams phone system implementation this month. Another feature of Teams that people may not know about or use very often is the Microsoft Stream, which is the ability to do things like recording and sharing Teams presentation. So like today's presentation that we're doing, we're recording that. We'll download the recording and actually upload it to YouTube, but allows you to do, if you don't want to have to, if you just want to share it internally, you can record those team sessions and then share them amongst your people without having to use an outside service like YouTube. So very powerful service. And then there are a ton of other Microsoft Teams features. If you have any scenarios where there's a lot of noise or other things, you want to make sure people are hearing you, you can turn on live caption. That's a very great feature. Or if you have anybody who's hearing impaired or anything like that, it gives them the accessibility to help them be part of the team. And then there's whiteboard, lists, planner, and lots of other things that go on. So as I mentioned earlier, that's when I feel like, Teams is the one thing that, makes Office 365 and Microsoft 365s such a great value. And then we'll talk a little bit more about another feature that's being highly used. I think I heard earlier in the chat where a lot of people talked about using SharePoint and OneDrive significantly. So, and it's another application that's seen exponential growth in usage since the start of the pandemic. And we like to think of these two as two sides of the same coin. SharePoint is where you set your permissions and all of those things, and then OneDrive is the engine that drives the file sharing capabilities. So, and these two applications, when they're working together, give you that that true cloud file sharing capability, the ability to replace file servers, make files available anywhere, anytime, on any device. If you're traveling, you've got your laptop with you, you've got your files with you, and you don't have to have a VPN to access it, which is from a user a user's perspective, that's a much easier way to do it rather than have to establish a VPN connection, browse to the files. The performance is also better than a VPN connection as well. And then being able to use it with any device, right? So I can use it on my laptop. I can use it on my mobile device. I could be traveling and I could be at a hotel where they've got a business center, and I can go to the business center and just log into the Office 365 portal and access my files. So being able to access those files anywhere, anytime is pretty a pretty amazing feature that drives a lot of value to organizations. So being able to set those permissions at the group and user levels, like you would do on traditional file shares, as an awesome feature. A feature that we use a lot is the ability to edit documents with Office applications at the same time. So we often are in Excel or Word together and editing those files. One that I skipped was the being able to share documents inside of the Office applications, especially Outlook and Teams. So instead of actually sending them a copy of the document, you can actually send them a link to the editable version of those documents, and then you can set permissions on who's able to view those documents. Can they just view them? Can they edit them? So on and so forth. So, and then if you're using any services or tools like Dropbox or Box or any of those kind of things, you may be able to replace those services with OneDrive and SharePoint and share files outside your organization. So, and then the last thing I always like to bring up is how OneDrive for Business is your own personal home drive. Back in the day, we would set up users on a network where the H drive was their home drive and only they could see it. And, they would be able to, put files there, and then they could access it from the computer. It would be backed up and so on and so forth. And so, OneDrive for Business does that for you automatically. It backs up your desktop and your My Documents folder and those kind of things. And then you can also just create your own file structure inside there and save documents there, which I highly recommend. So that can really go a long way towards, giving you the that capability of making sure that that your documents are protected. So even if your laptop hard drive fails or something or another, anything that's in OneDrive for Business will be saved in the cloud. So, and then there are tons of other new features, and I'm not going to try to cover every one of these because there's a lot of them. So, but I'll just kind of start at the top. As Microsoft has continuously been tooting their horn here lately about how many new apps and features. They say more than 20 new apps and more than 1,400 features have been released in the last 10 years. So, like I said, we don't have time to cover them all, but we're going to talk about a few of them. Microsoft Intune is a mobile device management solution. It's designed for kind of enterprises. It's got some difficulty in managing, but it's very powerful. You can do things like remote wipe. You can do set policies and do other things with it. Geofencing and so on and so forth. And there's a lot of capabilities there. And it's available only on select plans. It's not available on every Microsoft 365 plan. So Microsoft Bookings is one that I don't see a lot of organizations using it, but if you've got salespeople that need to share their calendar with their customers or prospects, or service people, or sales engineers, or other anybody really could use it. But basically, you can make your calendar available to people, so you can send a calendar invite and say, hey, here's my calendar, pick a date and time that works for you, and this is my availability. And you can kind of customize that to how many days in advance they can book it, and how much time, and so on and so forth. But it's a very powerful tool. So Power BI is another one. If you're spending money today on 30 third-party data analytics tools, you might be able to use Power BI instead to do that data visualization. So you can connect to Excel spreadsheets and SQL databases and pretty much any ODBC data source. And then you can take that data and slice and dice it in so many days, in so many ways, that where you can then visualize it how you want to see it. You can make it available to dashboards and SharePoint portals and other things. It's a very powerful tool. If you need more information on that, just let us know. One of the new features that I haven't had a chance to get into, but I'm very excited about, is Microsoft Sway. And from what I've seen, it's a tool that you can use to create and share, different types of media, reports, presentations, and so on and so forth. But makes them, more lively, interactive, and it's supposed to be really easy to create them. So hopefully we'll have some videos and other things on that we're going to be posting in the future about that. Another area that Microsoft has spent a lot of money, and as they say, they've spent billions of dollars, is in the security and compliance area. So, when you think about Microsoft, they are, the #1 cloud provider in the world. That also makes them the biggest target in the world as well for cybersecurity, and these hackers that are out there. They're always trying to get in. So Microsoft is spending a lot of money on that. But it's not just on the security side, but they also spend a lot of money and time, effort on the compliance side. So if you're in local government or finance or other things, these tools around things like data loss prevention, how can people send data outside your organization? Can it be blocked? And those kind of things is a key to that data loss prevention methodology. Another thing,
David, I'm going to stop you real quick there. Since we're a little bit ahead on time, I figured Patrick's question would be really relevant here.
Okay.
So Dr. Patrick was saying we've been receiving a large number of scam emails and et cetera. And does Microsoft have any new protection options?
They do, and this is a good spot to answer that. So with most Microsoft 365 subscriptions, you can add on what used to be called ATP. I think it might be called Defender of some sort. We'll have to look up because they keep changing the nomenclature.
It is Defender now.
Okay, awesome. And so it's an email filtering service that allows you to block more of those scam kinds of emails. But one of the things that we've determined, in 20 years, is that spam emails and scam emails and phishing emails, it's all a game of cat and mouse, right? So you know, the scammers get a little ahead, and then Microsoft and the other vendors, get caught up, and they go back and forth. So one of the best things you can do if you have, if you got users, is to get them trained on how to use or how to use what we call the SLAM method of looking at emails. So look at the sender. Who's the sender? Does it match the person who it says it's from? If it says it's from David at fulcrumgroup.net, but the actual underlying email address is Fred at XYZ company, you know that that's probably not a legitimate email. Look at the links. If it's from the email says it's from David at fulcrumgroup.net, but you look at hover over the link and look and see that the link is actually going to, someplace in China, that's probably not a legitimate email. Look at the attachments. Is this an email that you were expecting? And can you be sure that those email attachments are legitimate? If you're not sure, you probably just need to delete it, right? So that just gives you a little bit of an idea, but we can send you over some information about both of those tools. So. And then Steve brought up about the Power BI dashboards being able to be used to share over to Teams tabs. Steve is our guru on that. He's done a really good job of helping us be able to see our metrics inside of Teams instead of having to go to other places to find that information. So as he says, easy peasy. So although I think for the rest of us, it might not be quite easy peasy, but we're going to call Steve and ask for his help. So, all right. Hopefully, Patrick, that answered your question, and if not, we'll get some time with you one-on-one on that. So, and then getting back into that, so we also have things like message encryption. So certain levels of the Microsoft 365 subscriptions include message encryption, which is the ability to send encrypted emails. Microsoft by default already has a lot of encryption enabled. So the encryption between the Microsoft Outlook client and the Microsoft Exchange email server in the cloud, that connection's all encrypted. If you're a one Microsoft 365 customer sending to another 365 customer, all of those connections are encrypted. It's when you get to sending to people on Gmail or Yahoo or other email services where things may not be encrypted, and it may be dumbed down to just the basic clear text that you have to worry about. So having that capability to send a true encrypted message is a very awesome feature. There's other things like e-discovery. So if you're a large organization and you want to have the ability to be able to search for documents or emails related to a specific topic, that's where e-discovery comes into effect. Multi-factor authentication is another one. That's a built-in feature to Microsoft 365 on certain subscription levels, but depending on what your needs are, the basic MFA may not be the right solution for you. So, and as we're getting, as the cyber insurance carriers are getting more sophisticated and they're getting more specific about what cybersecurity controls that you have, it's a good idea to make sure you've got your MFA deployed. So. And then in the world of the artificial intelligence, they have a lot of things around live captions. When I was building out my PowerPoint presentations today and this week, I was using the ideas in PowerPoint to create more visually appealing slides. And there's other tools and other applications such as the researcher in Word and chart recommendations in Excel that really make things better for you, where you don't have to have that super clear knowledge of those things, but you can still get a lot of functionality. All right, we're down to the last slide here. So, you know, this last item that I want to cover isn't a Microsoft feature, but I'm mentioning it specifically because Microsoft doesn't include it, and that's backups for the Microsoft 365 data and applications. So, so when you think of your email and other things, you know, I've heard customers tell me in the past, well, I don't need backups because Microsoft backs it up for me. That's not true. Now, there are some things that Microsoft does to protect things in the cloud, right? So they've got redundant data centers and, you know, redundant internet connections and all of those things. So they're not likely to lose your data. But when users delete data, like in Microsoft Outlook, for instance, that data is only retained for 30 days. So if somebody deletes something and you don't have a copy of it in backup, that data is going to be lost forever. So, and also now that we have customers using more of the OneDrive and SharePoint, the need for backups has increased significantly, right? Because your a Microsoft 365 backup solution should be able to cover those as well. So, so we're talking about files that could be deleted, folders that could be deleted, emails that could be deleted, or sometimes they're just lost, right? Somebody stores a file and a folder, but they don't remember where they stored it at. Another thing that we have to protect against is, you know, data that is deleted on purpose. So if you have an employee who is disgruntled and decides he's going to delete data and you don't know about it, by the time you get to the point where you need it, you may not be able to recover it. So you want to make sure that you have something in place to do that. Other reasons that you might want to have a backup solution for Microsoft 365 could be around compliance. Maybe your industry requires that you have it, or it also could be a requirement of your cyber insurance. So those are things to kind of look at there. So we highly recommend that you get a solution in place. Our Spot Protect for Microsoft 365, it protects email, SharePoint, OneDrive, and Teams data. We give you unlimited backup storage and what we call infinite cloud retention, which means we don't ever delete your data in the cloud either. You know, if you want to go back and find an email from 5 years ago or a file from 5 years ago, and you've overwritten that file many times since then, we can go back and find that, you know, that version from 5 years ago. And then we give you, you know, very granular restore capabilities. Do I want to restore just one email? Do I want to just restore one file? Or do I need to restore a whole, you know, slew of things? It's another good protection for, you know, ransomware and other things as well. So, all right, well, we are ahead of schedule. So, once again, that was a ton of content there. So we'll be sending out the slides and the recording afterwards. So let's jump into some questions. Well, I know somebody's got to have a good question about all the stuff we just covered. So who's got a good one for me?
So nothing since Patrick's just yet. I was a little curious about SharePoint when you're saying access these files anywhere, like at a hotel, you go down to the business center. How do we know we're protected when we're logging in and stuff of that nature? How do we know that we're as secure as we say we are?
Well, there's a few things. You know, one is that the Office 365 portal.office.com, is encrypted by default. So when you see that little lock up there in your browser, you know that that's an encrypted connection. So all the communication from that computer to the cloud servers is encrypted. So that's first and foremost. And then, of course, if you have multi-factor authentication enabled, when you log in on that computer, it's going to send a prompt to your phone or, you know, to your smart key to do that. So.
Got it. And we have a question here from Todd Howard, suggestions on finding free integration with Office 365. So adding through Office 365 tends to obfuscate pay requirements.
Yeah, that's a tough one. You know, in today's world, you know, one of the biggest challenges for IT is what we call shadow IT, and that's enabled because of, you know, all of these you know, places where you can go get and download applications, and we don't know, you know, how well do they play. You know, maybe they're free on the front end, but you gotta, you know, you gotta pay for certain features later. Those kind of things, as Todd is mentioning there. So it's a tricky one, and you know, I don't think I have a good answer for that. You know, I'd like to think that Microsoft and other vendors will, you know, that are offering these applications would do better vetting of that, but I don't think that's the case. So if you're looking at a new application, I would suggest checking with your IT first and see if they have something that maybe that you're already using or paying for. If not, maybe they can help you vet, you know, what those applications are, or what's available, what would be the right kind of solution. And Todd, I don't know if that answered your question, but if you want to, we can have an offline conversation about it one-on-one. So.
Also, at this point, since we're at the tail end, if anyone wanted to unmute to ask a complicated question,
Yeah.
feel free to ask anything and everything. If it's too complicated to type up, feel free to just unmute and pose a question to the group here.
Intune versus Microsoft Endpoint Manager. Intune is a mobile device management. So it's designed to manage mobile devices like iPhones, iPads, Android devices, and laptops. Microsoft Endpoint Manager, I'm not 100% familiar with that. Steve or David Ashley, anybody, do you guys know more about that one?
I'm sorry, say again. I was answering a quick question.
Microsoft Endpoint Manager, if anybody knows or familiar with that. So,
other than the fact that it's supposed to be integrated to manage the endpoint, some of the security setting, registry settings and such like that are more fine grained from one console rather than touching each machine. But that's all I know about it.
okay. We'll do it. We'll get you some information on that and send it over there once those. Jeremy, if you'll make sure to make a note of Ben's question, and we'll give him the comment on that one. So.
Got it. Anyone else?
Yeah, if I don't get some more questions, I'm going to start calling on people. I see Ben White looking right at me. He's got to have a question.
You are wrong. Yeah, he picked on me. He knew I came in late into this equation.
That's right. He has a lot of questions because he hadn't seen much of the content yet. What were you talking about, Ben wants to know? All right, we won't pick on Ben.
Sorry about that, guys.
That's all right.
Sergeant Grantham was asking if you would touch on the benefits of Azure AD.
Yeah, that's a really great one. So with you know, the concept of Active Directory has been around for a long time. You know, as Steve, my business partner, will tell you, you know, it was original. You know, directory services was invented by Novell, right? With the concept of having a central unified database of users and permissions and all of those things. And so, but it's always been server based up until the last few years. So with the advent of Azure cloud services, and you can kind of see the roadmap is for, you know, people having on-premises servers being, you know, fewer and fewer over time. You know, the first step in creating Azure AD is to get a Microsoft 365 tenant when you do that, you create an Azure AD. And then the second step is to link those two together through the Microsoft tools that are available so that whatever users you have in your Azure, on your on-premises AD are synchronized to your Azure AD. But in the long term, Microsoft really wants you to have your actual domain controllers in the cloud, in the Azure cloud, and have those things up there so that you have that, anywhere, anytime access to your Azure environment. So, so that is still it's coming and it's moving in that direction. And let me look at his question. So,
Hey, David, if you don't
yeah.
mind me piping in a little bit,
Jump in.
I think if you look at the evolution of networking in olden days, like way over 5-6 years ago, pretty much all security in your network was controlled by your firewall. Basically, everyone was at your office, everyone was behind the firewall, and all things that came in and out of your network were controlled by that. With COVID and work from home and all the other things out there, there's a lot of prevailing thought in security that the perimeter for as a security manifestation is basically dead or gone or evolved. And so Azure AD is extending kind of the security of instead of looking at security from a perimeter point of view, now we're looking at everything from an identity point of view. And so by linking your premise, domain controllers, Active Directory, and Azure AD, that's providing a synchronization between it. But the reason for that is so that you can use identity for your controls. It's a control mechanism like the firewall used to be. Because you've got some users working from home, you've got all these cloud-based applications that as long as you're tying your applications to Azure AD, your cloud-based applications, then you're able to enforce the same kind of securities. If you've got MFA implemented, you're able to apply MFA across the line or single sign-on or any of those other kinds of things. It's to help keep up with evolving needs of security and following that goal of, I guess, identity as the new perimeter. So that's the driver behind Azure AD and where it could benefit organizations for security.
Awesome.
Awesome. Amy also followed up with, is Teams safe for use for public meetings? Are controls in place like they are in WebEx?
I can answer that as well. When you configure Teams, there's policies that you set at Teams at the organizational level. So you can put controls in place on how you handle guests, who can connect in, what are the requirements for connecting in, all of those kinds of things. And the last time I visited Redmond, Microsoft had mentioned that part of their intention is that at some point in time, Microsoft Teams will replace Outlook as that de facto endpoint for all communications. Right now it's messaging, right now it's file systems and other things, but eventually, and even video, but at some point even email going into there. When email was designed, it was never designed to be secure. Teams is a completely different product. So from the beginning, it was designed with security in mind. There's a lot of granularity to it. So as you implement your Teams, you just want to make sure and evaluate your organizational policies and other policies to make sure they're consistent with what your specific needs are for Teams. But it's more secure than email.
And to kind of add on to that a little bit, if you're referring to like using it for city council meetings or P&Z meetings and stuff like that, one of the biggest concerns that you want to look out for is executive sessions in the security on that. I have a background in working with the live video for city council meetings and whatnot. So, pardon me. One of the things that we always recommended to clients is to make sure you have a separate call set up for any legal discussions that needs to be private from the public. So that way it rules out any opportunities of the public accidentally listening in.
Really good. Both Steve and Chase.
Ryan, Brian and David, this is Ben White. I gave kind of a funny answer to that question previously, and it is true that I came in late to this party. But I do want to say how much I appreciate being invited to this, and that it really is a good forum to hear different ideas and different things in the IT technology space for me as a manager, and just wanted to let y'all know that.
Love the feedback. Really appreciate it.
Todd Howard was questioning. He said that there's no status of increase for nonprofits that's currently known, but he wants to know if there's any time frame on when that info might be available.
We will put that as an action item to track that down and get that out to everybody. So, but that is a real good question. I wasn't able to get an answer on it before today. So,
Yeah, last I heard in a webinar I attended last month, there was no timeline on the nonprofit as at this time.
okay. All right. Well, we got a few more minutes for questions. Any others pop up? There've been some really good ones so far.
I put it in the chat already, but some folks did let me know they were having problems, like they would click in the chat and it wouldn't allow them to type anything. So if you're having trouble with it, don't hesitate to unmute and ask your question.
Yeah, that might be a feature of that where Amy was asking about being, our team's secure for public meetings. If I think I set the permissions on this appointment where if you weren't an original invitee, you wouldn't be able to chat. So, but there are some pretty granular settings in there on those Teams meetings. So that's probably why that's not happening. But yeah, unmute yourself and ask away. You got a lot of great minds on here. Not mine, but the rest of these guys here. So. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap up the Q&A session. So, Jeremy, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right, thank you, David. And thanks for the useful information today. Thanks to our event sponsors, Ingram and Microsoft, for making this event happen. And really appreciate everyone attending today. Now's the time for the giveaway. Prior to this event starting, I had some names drawn by David, actually our service manager. And for the $100 Amazon gift card that we're giving away today, it's going to, I guess we can't see that, Teresa Rich with MMC Group. Congrats, Teresa. We're going to send the Amazon gift card. It'll be emailed to you directly. So most of you have spoken with me previously, and some of you have had one of our first-time appointments. We'll be reaching out over the next week or so to set up more and identify some of those individual questions that you might still have. Good luck, and all of you have a tremendously successful rest of your 2022. Enjoy the rest of your day and stay safe. David, Steve, any last comments?
Yes, I think the big thing is that one of the things I've learned about the Microsoft 365 suite over the last few years is that it's an integral part of our business, and it's becoming more of an integral part of our clients' businesses. So knowing it, those kind of things is a real key to helping your knowledge workers become more productive and more effective. So as part of our follow-up here, we're going to be sending you links to some of our recent training videos that we've done and some of our other content that'll be available as well. So hopefully you'll find some use out of that. We'll send copies of the presentation. We'll send a recording of the whole Lunch and Learn event, and hopefully everybody will find that useful. And like Jeremy said, if you got questions, comments, want to meet, let's get together. So,
Jeremy, I'd just like to throw in there that when Teams first came out, we did a test deployment internally, and I just did not get it. Basically we did a couple of things with it, and all I could think is, hey, here's just another way for me to get a message in addition to all the other social media and other channels, and it didn't make sense for us at the time. I just couldn't envision it. And I think that's a challenge of digital transformation, is that as things evolve, sometimes those of us who are a little bit more experienced have a hard time seeing past what we're used to, past what works, and past how we currently do business. And I think that's a big challenge for us in 2022 and coming years, is that if we're hoping to give better client experiences, if we're hoping to engage with our employees better, if we're hoping to achieve whatever revenue or profitability or other goals that our organizations have, we've got to get more efficient and effective, and understand what different technologies bring to bear. And you may not get it at first, but you're on the right path if you listen into different presentations and hear what different people say. Because for me, it wasn't the first or second or third time that I got involved with Teams, or even the fourth or fifth. It was like the seventh, eighth, or ninth time that I started suddenly saying, hey, instead of having our phone call for our morning huddles, let's make it a video conference. And instead of handling this way, let's do it this other way. And one of the big things out of our management framework is scaling up. And one of the key concepts out of it is every year we go back and review our top 4 to 9 processes and try and figure out, is there, who's the owner, and is there a way to make that process better? That would be my challenge to you, is that as you hear these things and hear these different technologies, go back to your organization, think about your most important processes that you have, whether it's sales, client engagement, or, whatever, how you bill, invoice, connectivity between apps, whatever, and start looking at, hey, is there technology out there that could introduce automation or make things a little bit simpler? Because that's the only way we're going to be able to keep up with the pace of business these days.
Really great insight there. I almost didn't remember what we were using prior to Teams when the pandemic hit, but just like others, we integrated it, and now I basically feel like a bit of a Teams expert. But really good insight, Steve. I'd like to take it away from the Mandalorian. This is the way. If it doesn't feel that way yet, it seems like it's going to be that way in the future. So it's adapt or die, I guess.
I thought I saw you wearing Beskar armor the other day.
Yeah. I had to come in the office. Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate the help. Definitely call me so I can forward you to the expert.
Yeah.
Well, thanks everyone. We appreciate you being on, and if anyone needs to jump, go right ahead.